Hey, Brandon here from the Devy Deep Dive podcast and creator of the Devy Dashboard. Thanks for tuning in and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today, where our show is going to be the top 24 rookies headed to the NFL draft. My dashboard contributors, we all did a mock draft. We all ranked our incoming rookies to the NFL and accumulated ADP. And we're going to give you a little sneak peek of what possibly the first two rounds of a rookie draft could look like as we head into the NFL draft season. It's way early. We got lots of stuff coming up. We got Senior Bowl coming up. We got the Combine coming up. So we got a lot more data, a lot more film to watch, but nonetheless, it'll be a fun exercise. So thanks for sticking around and checking it out. So if you like this channel, I got all sorts of great stuff on this channel. I've got game films, I've got shows, I got player, rookie profile films. Please check it out. Please subscribe to the channel. You can follow me also on Twitter. And if you want information on the Devy Dashboard, feel free to hit me up with the information below in the show notes. And please leave a comment too. Love interacting with everyone. Tell us where you think we're right, where we're wrong, and let's get some discussion going. Love interacting with the people who watch and follow me on this YouTube channel. All right, so let's get to it, man. We're going to talk about the ADP. Now, I'm going to add a little twist to this, which is going to be kind of fun. There's a great website out there. It's called NFLMockDraftDatabase.com. And what that website does is it basically takes all of the mock drafts done online and accumulates all the data, which will give us a good idea of the professionals who do this for a living, on all the scouts who actually do these mock drafts throughout the year. You can see trends of players. You can see where these players are actually going to be drafted, in the eyes of the professionals, the guys who do this all the time. So I think that's a really good, interesting twist we're going to throw in here, and we're going to see that as we go through the ADP. So let's not waste any time. Let's get right to it. All right, so coming in at 1.01 with an ADP of 1.14, probably is going to be no surprise to most, is going to be Matt Corral, quarterback from Ole Miss. I should start out by letting you guys know that this is a super flex PPR tight end premium kind of draft thought process doing this ADP. But nonetheless, he's coming in at the number 1 spot. And in the draftable mocks, he is number 11. That is an overall rank. The overall ranks on the mocks are basically overall for all positions, heading to the NFL. So you can see he's got top 15 draft capital right now in the eyes of the scouting community. But Matt Corral's probably no surprise coming off number 1. Look, we got Kenny Pickett too, who's a big riser as well. So I read a lot of mock drafts. It's one of my favorite things to do. So Kenny Pickett's a riser, man, and we're going to talk about him shortly. But nonetheless, we got Matt Corral coming in at the 101, coming in at 102 on our ADP with an ADP of 3.57 is Mr. BREECE Hall, running back from Iowa State. Probably the number 1 running back for most people out there right now. He's certainly my number 1. I think he brings all the tools to the table with the power, the vision, the pass catching, the elusiveness, lateral ability. He's pretty much the consensus number 1 running back on our board. There are a few guys on our dashboard that see him being maybe number 2 or 3, like in KENNETH Walker, who's a riser who we're going to talk about very shortly. But nonetheless, BREECE Hall's coming off number 2. If you can get that bell cow back early in a draft, it makes sense, especially if he lands in Miami, Atlanta, or the Cardinals, or a team that is desperately looking for a ball carrier with at least a somewhat of a successful offense. I mean, BREECE Hall landing spots are going to matter, so we'll probably do this exercise again when we have a little bit more data on landing spots to kind of see where we compare maybe. But nonetheless, BREECE Hall, most likely, the wide receiver position is a little deeper, so it makes sense here to possibly get your RB1 of the class, given how hard it is to get, bell cow backs who will stay on the field for all 3 downs. And I think BREECE Hall fits that bill. Coming in at the 3rd pick, 103, with an ADP of 4.14 is Mr. Sam Howell, North Carolina quarterback. Now, Sam Howell, looking at his overall draftable number at number 29, is telling you that, he is not really maybe a first-round draft pick. So I personally have Kenny Pickett at number 2. Sam Howell's been a favorite of many Devy guys, for a long time. He's shown production in 3 years of solid production. But right now, I'm going to have to listen to the Devy or the mock draft community a little bit. I just looked at a bunch this morning, and Sam Howell is not really showing up in a lot of first-round mocks. It doesn't mean that he's not going to be a first-round pick, but nonetheless, he is trending in the wrong direction. But nonetheless, he is number 3 on our ADP. A lot of guys on the dashboard still are believers, and I understand. I get it. 3 years of good production, good arm. He's very underrated with the ball in his hands as a rusher. So, and again, it's a super flex, right? So if, again, he lands in a great spot, don't know if any of these quarterbacks really in this class are going to get to be starters year one. Maybe CORRAL, Pickett, I don't know, maybe. But nonetheless, I can see why people reach for quarterbacks early in rookie drafts, especially in superflex leagues. So it's not, a surprise to see Sam Howell here at number 2. You may be thinking that it should be Pickett, and maybe it will. But like I said, this is a way early kind of ADP show, so I'm sure things will change. Coming in at the 1.04 with an ADP of 4.29 is Mr. Treylon Burks, wide receiver out of Arkansas. He's got a draftable number at number 23, so he looks like he's a rock-solid first-round draft pick. Big receiver. We know all the traits. And again, this show's not about getting into the traits. I'm going to be doing rookie film breakdowns, detailed film breakdowns, on my YouTube channel. So feel free to check them out as they drop. But nonetheless, Treylon Burks, it doesn't surprise me. He personally is not my number 1 receiver. I have Jameson Williams. Poor guy tore his ACL. But nonetheless, Treylon Burks, everyone's looking at that Deebo Samuel, DK Metcalf kind of mold, bigger guy with the ball in his hand, versatile. I get it. So certainly a player who, now if you look at the mock drafts, he's certainly not the number 1 wide receiver coming off the board on a lot of mock drafts for a lot of well-reputable sites. But nonetheless, I think people are just enamored with his size, his big hands, his physicality. I get it. At 105 coming in is Isaiah Spiller, the second running back off the board, coming in at 4.86 ADP. Running back out of Texas A&M. He's got a draftable of 57. And BREECE Hall, I forgot to mention, has a draftable rank of 53. So they're both locked and loaded for second-round draft capital, both of those top running backs, both BREECE Hall and Isaiah Spiller. And that's fine because, day 2 capital for running backs is just fine. I have not seen any running backs get taken in the first round for a long time in any of these mock drafts. So I think the consensus is that they're going to be day 2 picks. And that's great. And Isaiah Spiller, consistent runner, Texas A&M, showed his pass catching ability this year. He's got vision. He's big. He's strong. I can see, again, there's going to be a drop off after we get to the Kenneth Walker. There's going to be a drop off in running backs, but nonetheless, we're hoping a guy like Spiller, right, lands in a great spot that is in a needy part, of not even a committee, but a guy who will potentially land in a spot where he will get bell cow kind of work, right? Coming into 1.06, we got our second wide receiver coming off the board with an ADP of 4.86, and that is Mr. Garrett Wilson from Ohio State with a draftable stock of number 12, right? Okay, so he is a top 15 pick in most mock drafts. He's not getting out of the top 20 in the majority of mock drafts, so I can see why he has a nice ADP of 4.86. Pass catchers landing in good spots are always a good thing. A lot of people, there's been a lot of chatter on Twitter lately about his skill set and playing with Olave. I'm not concerned about it. I still think he's got sticky hands. I think he's got the body control. I think he's got the route running tree. I'm not at all concerned. I like Garrett Wilson. I think, again, in this class, he's going to be definitely one of the top wide receivers taken in the first round. All right, at 1.07, 7.5 ADP is Mr. Kenny Pickett. All right, so he is our third quarterback taken here. He's got a draftable grade of an 8. All right, so he is, again, climbing in these mock drafts, being most likely the first guy. So he is this year's Zach Wilson, right? Zach Wilson kind of came from nowhere last year and rose up and was was a top pick as well. Kenny Pickett may very well be the first quarterback taken in the draft. Me personally, I got him at number 2 after Matt Corral. I can see why. He's got all the traits. He's got the mobility, the arm. He's got the leadership skills. Now, there's going to be a lot of people that are a little nervous because the first 3 years at Pittsburgh, he wasn't great. And then this year, he has a great season with Addison. And people are saying, well, what happened to him the first 3 years? Well, guys can get better, right? So a lot of people also concerned about how Zach Wilson is struggling and that maybe is Kenny Pickett a mirage or is he the real deal? Well, it seems to be in the mock draft community that he is a riser, and I think it's being spoken, and where there's fire, there's smoke, and there's a lot of smoke at Kenny Pickett being the first guy taken in the NFL draft. All right, coming in at 1.08 with a ADP of 8 is Mr. Jameson Williams, wide receiver, Alabama. He is my number 1 receiver. I feel so bad for the young man who tore his ACL in that game, but nonetheless, this kid is a space creator. I think he's got the speed with the ball in his hands. I'm super excited. If I could get him here with the 8th pick in a rookie draft, I would be thrilled. He's got a draft mock rank here of 15. So again, he's not getting out of the first round. I think even with his ACL injury, I think he is a day 1 lock in the first round. 109, we got the 3rd running back coming off the board with an ADP of 8.57. That's Mr. Kenneth Walker, running back out of Michigan State. Draftable has him at 44, which again is a clear day 2 pick. I can certainly see a guy, he is this year's Javonte Williams. He's the guy that came out of nowhere and may very well be the first pick, the first running back taken in the 2nd round. He has a draftable grade here of 44. We just talked about Spiller at 57 and Breece Hall at 53. So the draft mock community is is looking at possibly Walker being the first guy taken off the board, and it very may well happen. You know, we got a lot of stuff to still happen to see what happens. All right, coming in at the number 10 pick in the first round with a ADP of 10.14 is Mr. David Bell, wide receiver from Purdue, physical receiver. People are questioning his route running ability. You know, he finds himself in a lot of contested catch situations. I understand there could be no more physical receiver than David Bell in this class. He is certainly a very physical receiver, was very productive, even with Rondale Moore on the field. He has the production profile that I think a lot of analytic guys are going to love. Nonetheless, he has got a draftable grade of 37, so he's inching out of the first round and into the 2nd. Nonetheless, let's hope he lands in a great spot. Would love to see my Philadelphia Eagles take a shot in the 2nd round with David Bell to complement Devonta Smith. So I can't wait to see where all these guys land, because it's going to be fun doing this entire exercise again when we actually have teams that they're going to be playing on, because a lot's going to probably change. Coming in at 1.11 is Mr. Drake London with an ADP of 10.29. He is a USC wide receiver. Now, the young man was certainly probably the most productive wide receiver in college football last year. He got hurt, but man, he played, I think, 8 games, and he was just unstoppable. I mean, Drake London was known to be the guy who was going to be getting the ball, and they still couldn't stop him. A lot of people think he's a contested catch only guy. I think he's a little bit more than that. He's compared to Mike Evans light. It's got the height, not the same kind of weight yet, but nonetheless, he was a productive player. He brings something that's a little different with his height. He's got good yak ability. I think he is a strong candidate to be a 2nd round pick. He is a draftable grade of 24, which actually then tells us that he is getting picked in the 1st round. So it's looking like there could be in this draft 5, 6 wide receivers taken in the 1st round. It's going to be really exciting, man, that draft day. All right, Mr. George Pickens coming in at 1.12. That he has an ADP of 12.71, wide receiver from Georgia. Now, he has a draftable grade of 54 on the mock draft site, so he is in the day 2 draft capital conversation. George Pickens, I often wonder myself, one of my favorite receivers. A lot of people are questioning his intangibles, his release, his space creation ability. He is very, very physical. It'd be very interesting. It's a shame he tore his ACL. I wonder what the community would be thinking of George if, in fact, he didn't tear his ACL and he had a productive season at Georgia. But nonetheless, he rounds out our top 10 or our top 12. I'll just recap that real quick. We got Matt Corral, Breece Hall, Sam Howell, Treylon Burks, Isaiah Spiller, Garrett Wilson, Kenny Pickett, Jameson Williams, Kenneth Walker, David Bell, Drake London, and George Pickens. All right, round number 2, okay, at the 2.01 with an ADP of 14.57 is Mr. Malik Willis, quarterback out of Liberty. He's got a draftable mock grade of 33, so it looks like he's borderline, you know, round 1, round 2. I won't be surprised at all if he is a round 1 pick. People are going to want to get that extra 5th year on that contract. But this is a risk reward. This is like a Trey Lance pick, right? He showed some tangibles of the big arm, the mobility, the toughness running with the ball. It's all going to come down to me for Malik Willis with the intangibles. Is he have the ability to read the field, get the ball where it needs to be on time? So he is I think, a little bit more of a raw project that will most likely sit a year and do what Trey Lance is doing for the 49ers right now. But nonetheless, his whole just physical makeup is very tantalizing for fantasy with his rushing ability and his ability with the ball in his hand. So depending on landing spot, he is going to be an interesting prospect that we're going to be discussing here for the next 2 or 3 months. All right, coming in at the 2.02 with an ADP of 14.86 is Mr. Jahan Dotson, wide receiver from Penn State with a draftable grade of 27. Seen him in first-round mocks all towards the latter part. He may slip into the second round depending on how many defensive players are taken, but nonetheless, Jahan Dotson is a top 6-7 wide receiver in this class. Very productive. I wish he had a better quarterback than Clifford because he had to make some outstanding catches. I did a detailed rookie profile film on him that is on my YouTube channel, so be sure to check that out. You can kind of, we break down his film and everything, but I like Jahan Dotson. I think he's going to be a wide receiver 2, possibly 3 in the NFL. Don't see him being an alpha in any kind of lead role, but if he finds himself on a team that has a good quarterback with an already alpha 1 wide receiver, he could make some serious noise next year in Dynasty. Coming in at 2.03 is KYREN Williams with an ADP of 16.14, running back out of Notre Dame. Without a doubt, he's the best pass protector of all the running backs in the class. I think everyone's waiting to hear his size. Everybody wants to see if he's going to be a 200 or is he going to be able to stretch it to 205, 206. I've been one to talk about, running back size matters. And a lot of these guys who come in light, just over 200, have difficulty being 3 down backs in the NFL. So I know a lot of people, we discuss it on my Slack chat all the time on the Devy dashboard. Everyone can't wait to see where KYREN Williams, but nonetheless, regardless of his size, where he comes and weighs in, the guy plays over and above over his size. He plays tough. He's strong. He's got good vision. He's explosive. Very exciting running back headed to our Dynasty rosters. Coming in at 2.04 with an ADP of 16.43 is Mr. Chris Olave, Ohio State wide receiver. Now, last year, everybody was all bummed out when he was a junior and decided to come back for his senior year. I know the analytical guys are all out on him because of that. Didn't really hurt Devonta Smith very much, and I don't think it's going to hurt Chris Olave either. I think he is a space creator. I think he's got a draftable grade here of 19. He is a first-round lock as far as I'm concerned. You come from Ohio State, people are going to take a chance on you from playing in that program, number one. Number two, both him and Wilson are both solid, good space creator wide receivers, and they're not too big, they're not too small, they're right in the middle to be able to contribute both vertically, and I think Chris Olave is a little undervalued here. I have him higher in my personal ranks than he is here. I have him, I believe, at number 4 overall. I think he is just an undervalued player right now, and excited to see where he is going to land as well. Coming in at the 2.05 with an ADP of 16.57 is Mr. Wan'Dale Robinson, wide receiver from Kentucky, with a mock grade of 69. So, he's looking like a third-round pick, which is understandable. Wan'Dale Robinson right now, I just did a film review on him, a rookie profile film, and broke down his film on the channel. So be sure to check that out. But nonetheless, I think everyone's waiting again to see what his size is. There's a lot of stuff talk. There's a lot of buzz right now talking about Wan'Dale Robinson. Is he really 5'11"? There's pictures circulating that he could be more like 5'9", looking more like a Rondale Moore size versus a Jalen Waddle size, right? Nonetheless, I think he's a super explosive player and really, really tough for his size. He's one of my favorite receivers in this class. He's going to be, a day 3 pick or, a round 3 pick rather. But nonetheless, if he finds himself in a spot where, he's definitely not an alpha receiver by no means, but he could be a definite great contributor on our Dynasty roster if he finds himself in a really, really good situation. Coming in at the 2.06 with an ADP of 17.29 is Mr. Jerome Ford, running back out of Cincinnati. Draftable mock grade here of 94. So he is looking like a day 2 pick. He could be that 4th running back that slips into day 2. Back in 2021, I believe there was only 4 backs taken in the first 3 rounds. I think it's going to be very similar this year, that there's going to be only 4 backs probably taken, maybe 5 in the draft coming up. But I think most of the backs in this class are going to be day 3 picks. So he could squeeze in there. Now, Jerome Ford, I'm going to be putting out a video on my YouTube channel with a film breakdown that I just did with him. And I came away really impressed with him. I think we're going to talk about him in a little bit, but Jerome Ford is a riser. I think he has got that spot kind of solidified as maybe the 5th or 6th back in this class, but he's got some burst. He's got some decent long speed. He's got some good vision. I'm excited to see where he lands and thinks he's going to be a good asset on our dynasty rosters. 2.07. With an ADP of 20.57 is Mr. Brian Robinson Jr. from Alabama, running back. He has got a draftable grade of 129, so he's looking like a day 3 pick, and I think from here on out, from Robinson probably to the rest of the running backs are most likely all going to be day 3 picks. But that doesn't mean that they can't be productive and find their way on our dynasty rosters, as we saw with Elijah Mitchell for the 49ers. That's what we're all trying to find, right? We're all trying to find next year's Elijah Mitchell in this kind of not super deep running back class, but there's some talent in this class. And one or two of these guys are going to hit. I'm a big fan of Brian Robinson. I like his physicality. I think he can catch the ball out of the backfield. I think he would be a great complementary back to a team that already has an RB1, a guy who could help you move the chains, be that goal line guy, just be a great kind of contributor when you need just a big physical running back. I'm excited to see where he lands as well. All right, this might be a surprise to some, is the next thing. You've probably been waiting for this name for a while, but coming in at the 2.08 with an ADP of 21 is Mr. Carson Strong, quarterback from Nevada. He's got a draftable grade of 42, so he's looking like he is a day 2 pick. And that doesn't necessarily mean good things for a quarterback when you're a day 2 pick. It doesn't mean that you're not going to pan out, but it's certainly, usually quarterbacks need that round 1 draft capital to really make it to our dynasty rosters, to be a QB 1 or 2 on our dynasty rosters. Now, nonetheless, there's a lot of discrepancy in conversation with Carson Strong. Probably has the strongest arm of all the quarterbacks in this class, but there's a lot of questions about his mobility. And that is the big knock on him. He's got a knee injury as well. So he could find himself in day 1 draft capital. A lot of people are looking at the Steelers late round in the first round, maybe trying to grab Carson Strong. He most likely will be there when they pick later part of the first round. Probably won't get him if they wait till the second part of the latter part of round 2. So, Big Ben wasn't the most mobile guy, big, tall kid, thick, who could really sling the ball down the field. Carson Strong would probably fit really good in Pittsburgh. Might be a project, but nonetheless, quarterbacks are starved in the NFL. There's a lot of teams that are looking for their next passer. He's got a draft grade of 42. So, like I said, round 2 is looking like where he might go, but he might sneak into the first round by the time it's all said and done. Coming in at the 2.09 with an ADP of 22.14 is Mr. Tyler Algier, running back from BYU. He's got a draftable grade of 105, so he's also looking like a day 3 pick. I really like Tyler Algier. I've been a fan of him. He's a converted linebacker. Really has been super productive this year and last year. People were waiting this year to see what he did when Zach Wilson went off to the NFL, and he still produced, I think, great numbers and was a focal point of that offense and really moved the chains. Big physical guy. May not have the elite mobility and lateral movement, but he's got good hands. I think he's got some good speed for his size. I really like Tyler Algier and really excited to see where he lands. We got our first tight end coming off the board here at the 2.10 with an ADP of 23.43. Mr. TREY McBride, tight end of Colorado State. He's got a draftable mock grade here of 40. So he's looking like a clear round 2 pick. I think he and Jalen WYDERMIER, who we're going to talk about here in a second, are going to be the 1 or 2 tight ends that most likely are the first 1 or 2 off the board. TREY McBride had a really productive year at Colorado State. Didn't score a lot of touchdowns, but man, he scored a ton of points. He was the lead receiver on that team. Everyone knew he was getting the ball, and he still was able to come down with it. They still couldn't stop him. He's got the size. He's got the physicality. He's got the hands. I think he can block. So again, in a tight end premium league, I can see it, the end of round 2 here is where these guys are going to start coming off the board. Mr. Rachaad White is coming in at the 2.11. 23.43 also, running back from Arizona State. He's got a draftable grade of 161. So he's looking at like day 5 or round 5 draft capital right now on average. I'm not the Rachaad White guy. I'm probably lower on him than all of my Devy Dashboard contributors who participated in this exercise. I'm going to have a film coming out on my YouTube channel on him as well. But, you know, I think a lot of people are really excited about Rachaad White for his pass catching ability. I question his ability to run in between the tackles effectively, but nonetheless, he's a kid who is getting some buzz. Don't see him in a lot of mock drafts and not in a lot of top 10 ranks of graders out there as far as running backs. But nonetheless, he's got some buzz in the Devy community, and I've got to respect that. Coming in at the final pick here at 2.12, Mr. Jalen WYDERMIER with a ADP of 24.71, Texas A&M tight end, super productive career. This year he took a little bit of a dip. Wasn't, you know, the guy, but nonetheless, he is got the size, the hands, everything we talked about. TREY McBride, he is the tight end one for a lot of guys, and can certainly understand that. It's not the deepest tight end class. I think we might get 2 or 3, maybe 4 Dynasty producers, but nonetheless, McBride and WYDERMIER here, I can see why people now are swinging for the fences to get that type tight end, kind of like Pat Freiermuth last year. This is probably where Freiermuth was coming off the board last year, part of the middle to the late part of the second round after all the other skill player, elite players were kind of taken. This is where you're going to start to see some people take some shots at tight end. So there you have it. So we'll recap the second round here. We got Malik Willis, Jahan Dotson, KYREN Williams, Chris Olave, Wan'Dale Robinson, Jerome Ford, Brian Robinson Jr., Carson Strong, Tyler Algier, TREY McBride, Rachaad White, and Jalen WYDERMIER. So some guys that didn't make the cut, you know, James Cook, you're probably wondering where he is. Hassan Haskins, those are 2 guys that I have higher than this ADP. But nonetheless, for this exercise, it's good to get a wide range of, you know, views on these players as well to see where your ADP ends up. But the bottom line is when you're at your rookie draft, man, you're going to have to make the call. So you can take this show, you can take all the information that you get from me and everybody else. But when it's there and you're in your rookie draft, it's going to be up to you to make that selection and who you like. So, and that's the way you should do it. You should always take your guy. Always take the guy that you like, regardless of what everyone else does. Because when the people are on your team, you want the guys that you believe in. That's the fun of all of this. So, all right, man. So again, feel free to subscribe to the show, to the channel. I appreciate you guys watching, and I got a ton of great content on the way. So again, thanks for watching.